Thinking of investing, working, or starting a business in the cannabis industry? We've got you covered right here on Plant Problems. Hosted by Tony Frischknecht, Plant Problems takes a different approach to cannabis than what you're seeing and hearing from the mainstream media. Come along with Tony and be in the know about how to invest, work, or start a cannabis business. Let's get the show started with your host, Tony Frischknecht.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Plant Problems. This is your host, Tony Frischknecht here, and I have our guest on today. We are actually, this is our 8th episode in an 8-part series with Flavia Hungaro. And Flavia has been building her start, and it's funny to say start, and she's been working on this for a couple of years now, but literally this is how it works in cannabis. You start at a point and you're like, well, I want to get my store open and I got all this. There's a lot of work to do before you can even start. So I've got Flavia Hungaro on today, and we are talking about business partners. She has a couple of them and she is looking for others. So hi, Flavia. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Thanks so much for being on with us. This is a big part of understanding how you can make big moves on your own, and you can't always do that on your own. There's a number of reasons why business partners work out, and there's millions why people have bad relationships with business partners. What do you use to kind of determine who a good business partner is and what they're going to bring to the table?
So there's different ways of looking at this to answer this question, right? Yeah. So one of the things it could be, you could look for a business partner that could be financially stable, that could benefit you that way. Some people might not have the funding, but they might have the experience working in the industry. That could be another thing. And in terms of licensing applications, you might have to look for a business partner that just fits the profile. For example, if you want to apply for a license in Boston, you might have to partner up with somebody who is a Boston resident or has lived in a disproportionate area impacted by the war on drugs. So those are a few things that you have to look into and see for you to choose the right partnership.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the first one, and I think most of us out there are thinking about is, all right, I don't have the money. I've got some of the expertise. I've got the know-how. I need a money partner. So for one, how do you find that person? I'll ask you that first. Or how would you look for a money partner?
So you have to look at the scope of your project and see how much money you need to raise for to reach your goals. That's one of the things that I did. Or just having somebody, for example, a family member who took on this journey with me.
Yeah.
And she has some funding available, and we are doing our best not to use all of our resources if possible. And if the case, we'll be willing to either add another partner if necessary. But if we can just keep ourselves, keep as a family business, that would be the best we can do. That's the main goal.
Okay, so I've been through a few scenarios when looking for money and what to watch out for, and what is your experience when are money guys approaching you? Are you approaching them? How does that work most of the time?
I've had both situations happening, and to be honest, I thought that I was going to get a lot more interest than I actually got. And so everybody said, once you have a provisional license, a lot of people are going to start calling you because they see your name on the list. They start, trying to figure out who you are, what your goals are, and, see if they can get a chance. But in my case specifically, I got the provisional license, and then COVID happened. So a lot of things stopped from happening how they usually, they used to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I didn't get as many phone calls as I was expecting because, the situation, like the economy changed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the things that, was different in my case. But so what I did was, because I wasn't getting as many phone calls, I started trying to figure out, like reaching out to different hard money loan on the internet, and trying to see, other companies that were doing really good, and see if they would like to, if they would be interested in partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was also looking for cultivation, you start looking for people with experience in the industry, because you don't want to partner up with somebody that just have the money. Maybe you want somebody who has the whole package, who has the experience as well, because that will make things a lot smoother. Even though you might have to, give up a higher percentage of ownership or give a higher interest rate back, that might be worth it.
Well, and you as a social equity applicant, there are certain things and guidelines that you have to follow, correct, as owner when it comes to ownership, right?
Yes.
What are some of those things that you have to make sure?
I think so in Massachusetts they have two different programs. One of them is a social equity, which I'm a part of, a participant of, and the other one it's called economic empowerment. And for depending which program you're a part of, then there are different ownership rules, percentages that you have to follow. So in my case, they've changed the regulations as the time went by. So basically, you have to keep a small percentage ownership, at least 9.9 or 10% if you are a social equity.
Okay.
So, and before it was considered 51%. That was the original requirement, but things changed. Now they did keep something like that for the economic empowerment participants. And depending where you apply, for example, if you go for a license, retail license in Boston, they do require that the majority ownership, the 51%, belongs to a social equity, a Boston social equity participant. So that's why I also decided to partner up with somebody who qualified for that.
And as a social equity partner, that 51% not only gives you majority leverage in making decisions in your company and the direction it heads, but it also gives you leverage in your negotiation, right?
Correct.
So what are some things that you've done, or some things that you're thinking about doing, to make sure that there's a fair deal with your partnership? How have you structured deals?
So specifically for the Boston project, I actually have, it's not just myself, and it's not just two people in the partnership. There's more people involved, and that, spreads. And okay, so I got some people with more experience than others, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then they come up with the 51% ownership. No, it's not just one person, it's more than one person. So that kind of like balances out how the decisions are made.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's fair that way.
And you've met some of these people in the program, is that correct?
Correct. Some
Okay.
of them I met in the program, yes.
Okay. How did you guys start talking? Was it just through the program, or you just hit it off, or what were some of the things that kind of led to your partnership?
Actually, for this specific case, I was already part of the first cohort for the social equity, and there was a meeting that we got together and we were discussing, like, asking for changes in the regulations for social equities and economic empowerment in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And that was one of the meetings where you really like get to know people, because you're discussing how you can make certain regulations better, and you're trying to get things together and present that to the counselors. And that's one of my first interactions, with my partners, and it was actually a great experience, because when you go to class, you make a lot of you meet a lot of people, and sometimes you don't really have the time to chat or to get to know them.
Yeah.
So outside, going through the regulations and meeting different people, different groups, throughout this process, it was like people with the same goals as well, trying to change something that could benefit a bigger portion of the population. So that was very interesting. And then because of that, we kept in touch. We didn't even know we were going to be partners. So we just, kept going. And one of them is a younger man, and he's going to be, part of this project in Boston, which is, I think, might be one of the most important ones that I have so far. Having a retail store in Boston is going to be huge. It's going to be, I think it's going to be like, the location is perfect, and having the right team. And he's going to be one of the youngest ones owning a retail cannabis shop. That was great.
It sounds like it happened pretty naturally then, with this guy in particular.
Yes, it really happened. His mom is also she's involved in a lot of movements to help minorities, and and I feel like she's done so much for the community as well, that not just for the cannabis community, but like I would say more like as in general. And I feel like it's very important to partner up with somebody who has like goals that involves making the community better. And that's one of the plans that we have, is to provide an excellent plan to help who is surrounding us. And what better person could have chosen to be partners with, right? To have somebody who's already doing so much for the community.
Well, you seem like you're very passionate about doing stuff for the community. I mean, that's part of what your plan is, but also being social equity seems like you want to get back. Is that correct?
Right. That's right. That's the key.
That is the key. Yeah, and it is. It's just some people have different focus. They get into it for that reason, and they don't always end up following through. One thing that you mentioned that I'd like to talk about it for a second is goals. When you guys talk about as partnership, your goals, are they pretty much similar? Are they pretty different? How does that look? How does it?
For goals, I would say, well, I have a lot of different projects going on, so I can't expect everybody's going to have the same, extent, ideals. But
with this guy in particular,
he's actually, this is going to be his first retail project. So hoping that, by the time we're actually hopefully going to be able to get the license in Boston and be open, that the goal is, because he does not have much experience, and I'll probably by then I'll have one store open. So my idea is to bring him on board so he can start training in one of my stores as well. So by the time we actually have our store open in Boston, that he'll be able to take full control as well, because he's going to have the experience. So I think that's going to be very important.
How is he as a communicator?
He's great. He's good.
Yeah,
I'm not a good communicator, but I think he does a better job than I do. So.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, partners are supposed to complement each other in different ways, right? And if it's a communication side, that's huge too. Especially if you have him dealing with your patients and the customers coming in can be a big deal. I know that once you start getting into the really running these stores and how busy these people will be, that's a big part of this too, is being able to communicate with your partners. I made a lot of mistakes doing this. I was used to working by myself a lot, and so now I know this, but at the time, I would sometimes I would communicate that I was making a decision, and sometimes I didn't.
Mhm.
And I tend to find that slowing down a little bit for me was better, because I like to get stuff done like any business owner. It's like, all right, once you're working through this, we got to get this motion going. We want to get the doors open. We want to get, customers in. We got to start selling, all this stuff happens. And so I ended up making some of these choices where it was like, well, what are they going to care? It doesn't matter. But they actually affected our relationship on a business level. And I saw that when I went through the process of more of a discussion on these decisions, that I had to deal with the fact that, hey, not everybody was going to be okay with them. And sometimes I just kind of had to bury it. And it's funny because such in any relationship, and I know you've got husband and kids, but arguments do come up. And what really happens is how do you deal with those when those arguments come up?
Mhm.
Because it changes the way your relationship is now and for the future. And having that knowledge now and being able to understand that, it could make or break our relationship was something that I wasn't thinking about as much as I used to, as much as I should have, actually, I should say. And following these people that I can communicate with and also make sure that I trust them and have their back. There's a lot of these little things that you have to work through as partners, but I've said this in the past, but you're basically married to them.
I know,
Um,
yes. I've realized this by now. That it's
yeah,
it's a big commitment.
it's huge
And
commitment.
the other partner that we have, she's actually already involved in the industry. She does not have a store open yet, but she's about to. And she's also she has the legal background, so that's another good thing because I don't, I'm learning as it's I'm going, and she has a good experience. And by the time we actually open to, she's gonna have hopefully at least one of her stores open. So she's gonna bring a lot to the table.
That's
And I
great.
think, yeah, I think that's gonna be very important. And we do really well together. We have had, we've been working. Not, I mean, this project it's more recent, but before that, she's helped me in other circumstances that I felt like very very comfortable working with her, and I think it's going to be a very good relationship. All of us working together in that project. So.
Well, what's great is when if you find an awesome attorney or accountant or CPA. Not only does it eliminate a lot of the overhead of cost of paying for an attorney or a CPA, you have somebody that really understands what, at the end of the day, when it comes to attorneys and CPAs in particular, what you actually have at the end of the day. Attorneys, they're going to be helping out with a lot of the contracts that are going to come up and reviewing. And if you don't have those in place, as you know, it can cause a lot of problems for business and actually being profitable and successful. Uh, Secondly, a CPA, with all the tax things that go along with this business, it's like the very place where you can't skimp. You can't not find a good CPA, and you can't not pay a good CPA. You try to do your best as you move forward, and you build some relationships with these guys where normally are much further than the business relationships, because they're going to be through you with the hard times. Um, especially licensing. Like, if I'm not sure if this partner is involved in a lot of the licensing on your side too, but I'm guessing she's familiar with what's been happening to you in Taunton recently and understands the struggles you're going through there. And you guys are able to relate on a personal level and not just business. And that's
Correct.
when you form a bond, right?
Yes.
And you find somebody like that that has your back.
Right. And
And
I mean, I've been working with other attorneys, and I've been so fortunate. I found like a very, very good team. So it's like a family. I that's how I feel. They might not even know that, but that's, sometimes I'm like, I'm just gonna call, because emails, it's so like
impersonal.
yeah. So
Hmm.
I just read a call and say, they've been helping me in so many ways, not just with the licensing. It's just like, for example, before a meeting, right? I have another attorney that I work with that, so I might be really stressed out, and he doesn't even know this, but I get to the point, like, it's right before the meeting. He's like, Flavia, just say, he gives like a few tips, and it's just, that's it. That's all I need to hear.
Yeah.
Sometimes I might hear the same thing from my husband, let's say, and it might sound completely different, but then when it comes from him, he's just like, he puts me calm. It's like, Flav,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it. And I'm like, okay, great. And that's what you need. You need to be with the right team. That's, I said in the beginning, and that makes such a big difference, because if you don't feel like you have the right person next to you, and if you have no experience in the industry, that's
Yeah. The trust that it takes to, um, because you're going to be experiencing a tremendous amount of more struggles as you grow your business, and the trust that you have to um, give to these people that you may have only met 6 months ago or a year ago is pretty big. And so, in order to trust that they're taking care of all the deposits in the store, and trust that they're counting all the inventory. I mean, when it comes down to the amount of cash and valuable items you're dealing with, it's millions of dollars a year.
right.
Um, it's not, and you're not keeping all that, but that's what's turning through the
Yeah,
system.
right.
And if you can't trust these people or turn to these people in some of those times of anxiety and stress, that's when relationships can start breaking down. And everybody has, an effed up moment where they screw up, and it's, sorry I went that way, but I've experienced some tough times where there's just an impasse and people start suing each other. And so, understanding that, especially when you start dealing with the money partners and what they're capable of, is extremely important. I do something that, I don't know how many people do this in the cannabis industry, but some of the stuff that I do when I'm dealing with money guys is I do background checks on them. I see if there's lawsuits that they have pending. I look at their assets. A lot of these little things that might take me, I've got a guy for each of them, might take me, half hour of my time, can save me from spending gobs amount of wasting my time, because you're going to get people that want to be your partners, want to give you money, but they're going to continually waste your time.
That's true. Yeah.
And if anything that I can share with you, doing your due diligence up front with some of these guys that you're dealing with will eliminate most of them.
That's
Uh,
true. Yeah, that's a good tip.
Stuff like, well, I need to do a background check on you. Can you send me your Social Security? Everybody can get your Social Security online as it is right now. It's not this big secret. There's plenty of people. So if they're scared to give you their Social Security because they're worried that you're going to do something to your credit, it's bullshit. Straight
Yeah,
up
I actually
bullshit.
had. It's interesting you said that, because there was somebody else that I was gonna be partners with, and you have to get documentation to finish the application,
Yeah.
and the amount of a hard time I was getting just to get a birth certificate or a social security number. I'm like, we haven't even started anything yet. If it's already like this way, if you can even trust me for this, like give it to the attorney. Don't give it to me. But you couldn't even reach out to the attorney. So like this is not the right partner you need. It's just so many decisions that you have to make. You can't be waiting like 3 days to get an answer like that, right?
Yeah, it's frustrating, but it's well worth it if it's somebody that's valuable to you and you see building a relationship and they're giving you all this information. You're like, well, I don't see anything wrong with trusting these people at this point. But there are some people out there that are, unfortunately, our business draws a lot of people to it simply because the amount of cash that the states and the local governments say that's bringing in, even though you and I as business owners know the majority of that cash is going right out the front door, paying all the bills. It's
Yes.
paying everything. And people don't see that. They see, oh, well, he's got $500,000 in a safe that he can't put in a bank account. You have to trust, your trust has to be so huge for knowing that your partner's not going to just rip you off and walk with 500 grand
Right.
and you lose your business, because it happens. I've had grower situations where I've had to fire growers and they will go in and put pests and insects in your flower room.
Oh my God.
I've heard of people going through and taking and taking male and pollinating flower rooms with male plants and leaving it. So, and that comes in the trust factor of, can you trust that this person isn't a vindictive person? I mean, these are little things that you kind of learn, but I hope that I can shed a little light on this for you in the future, and those for the listeners and people watching out there, that these are little things that little red flags that you should look for as you find these business partners and you learn to trust. The old saying, trust but verify, you need to really take to heart. I think that's a great way, to kind of end this is, if you're looking for scenarios, you're not looking to make sure that this person is, they're a bad person. You're just making sure to say that they are who they say they are. And that's okay. The thicker skin you get in business, the further you learn this, because you get burned a few times. And once you get burned a few times, it's just like, hey man, it's when you hear that old saying, business is business, this is what it is.
What about how do you create like a good operating agreement? That's where
exactly.
you have to think about that as well. So if you have any tips on that, I'll take it.
There are good ones, but what I've noticed is that even if you have somebody that can write a good operating agreement, if the person's not going to follow it because they're just straight up dirty, it doesn't matter how good you write it. Most of the time they'll have enough money, they'll fight it anyway. A contract is solid, and I totally agree with it, but it really comes down to if you have to take it to court, if you have to do all these things, and that costs thousands of dollars, and it really doesn't matter if you're dealing with a person that is nefarious and shady.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct.
But I'd be more than happy to discuss the operating agreement more with you and see who, look through some of my stuff and be able to give you some info on that. Okay.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Well, Flavia, I want to thank you again for walking through us, the listener, and me through what you're doing in business, because you are definitely going the right direction. And this is how it is. You are working through some amazing challenges right now that's teaching you how to be successful in cannabis. And it's also giving you some good lessons on what not to do. So
Right.
So thanks so much for allowing us to a little piece of what's going on in your business. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, and I hope I can inspire other people. If anybody wants to reach out and ask questions, I'll be available as well. And good luck to anybody who's trying to get into the business.
That's great. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening today. We will be back next week. I'm working on some new stuff, and I can't wait to share with you. Again, leave me any questions at plantproblem.com. And, of course, you can reach out to me on my social media. Thanks so much, and have a great day.
You've just listened to another insightful episode of Plant Problems. If you like what you heard so far, don't forget to tell your friends and colleagues. For additional resources or to leave a review, head over to plantproblem.com. Join us again next week on Plant Problems with Tony Frischknecht. We look forward to having conversations with you as we go along this journey.